Good day. I am Maxine Silvino together with Nicole Prieto, Jolo Tugade, and Christian Villones, and today we will be presenting how the perception on work from home setup is redefining intern well-being in the e-commerce industry. Good day. Let us go back 2 years ago, early 2020. A new start, new decade, and new year for everyone. However, 2020 was also the start of what some might say a downfall. 2020 was where the spread of the coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, reached all parts of the globe and caused a pandemic. Due to this, the Philippine government imposed strict lockdowns to help prevent the transmission of the virus. Due to this, all non-essential industries' capacity to operate has been greatly reduced. In addition to reducing industries' capacity to operate, government and companies have implemented alternative working arrangements, such as remote working, also known as telecommuting or work. Although this work arrangement is not something new and dates back to 1970s, it was only introduced in the Philippines in late 2018 when the Telecommuting Act was passed. The Philippines only really picked up remote work due to the pandemic, which is why industries and employees have been having a hard time adjusting to it. Hence, the statement of the problem that the group has identified is how employees used to the traditional work structure has not yet been accustomed to the emerging work arrangements. Throughout the study, the researchers aim to answer the following questions. First, how does the perceived online work climate impact an intern's well-being through attitudinal consequences? Second, how does the perceived online work climate impact an intern's well-being through behavioral consequences? As per the objectives of the paper, the researchers are to determine how work-from-home setup is redefining intern well-being in the e-commerce industry, and to identify how certain independent variables could impact interns' well-being. The scope of this research revolves around the e-commerce industry in the Philippines. The researchers wanted to highlight the industry because of its incredible growth during the pandemic. Another limitation is that the researchers were only able to gather data through an online survey and interviews due to the constraint brought about by the pandemic. Lastly, the study will be revolving only on interns who are part of the e-commerce industry during the pandemic and have experience working remotely. The creation of this research is beneficial for academic institutions because it serves as a contribution to the literature about the topic. In addition from this, organizations from different industries will be able to use this as a guide to help in determining what changes in policies and process should be taken to provide a healthier working environment for not only permanent employees, but for part-time employees as well.
Thank you, Max. To gain a better understanding of the work from home phenomenon, a synthesis on 4 areas of interest is conducted. While this practice has long begun in several parts of the globe, there is little to no consensus that proves whether remote work generally benefits employees. So in this chapter, we will be dissecting work from home, its history, its occurrence in the Philippine context, and a few empirical studies on its effects on well-being. According to Niles et al., during the 1970s, research into the origins of working remotely began primarily because of the term working from home was frequently used to describe the practice of working from home as a substitute for travel, mostly using technological communication means. It is also referred to as teleworking or telecommuting, as Raisiane et al. Noted that it gives employees the ability to work outside of the office while communicating with coworkers via technology. Here, work is done anywhere and at any time, which aids flexible working practices. Eurofound in the International Labor said that because of the widespread usage of mobile devices, such as the laptops and smartphones, which allows employees to work from anywhere, the workforce has readily transitioned away from the stationary working. Prasad et al. Affirmed that work from home is a productive working practice because it allows people to work from wherever they are most productive, as well as encourages work and life balance. Because individuals have greater control over their time and flexibility, remote workers, as indicated by Prasad et al., have the option to pursue their hobbies, careers, and personal improvements unlike non-remote workers. However, workload pressure, task interdependence, professional isolation, and family intrusion, according to Jamal et al., have an inverse link with telecommuting. As a result of these negative outcomes and an increasing number of teleworkers, regulating the systems which would allow the organizations to create work environments and work culture that takes into account the employees' well-being and safety is becoming pivotal now more than ever. Ripley et al. Stated that, as I quote, employees' perception of the work environment influences behavior, and that behavior leads to performance. These consequences, however, are not universal. Raisiana et al. Explained that the advantages and disadvantages of working from home varies depending on the demographics, educational background, and work experiences of an individual. Employee satisfaction, perceptions of their own performance, and ability to balance work and life are all factors that must be considered in order for them to fully adjust to their new work environment. Considering that interns are only at the beginning of their work experience and that we all here are living in an internet challenged country, how else do we think that perception of a seemingly unconventional online work climate affects the well-being of interns? To find out on this, we will be discussing in a few slides the dimensions that contribute positively and negatively to the said outcomes. In the Philippines, when the enhanced community quarantine was imposed, non-essential establishments were forced to physically close, forcing people to work from home. Irawanto et al. Describe how working from home was inevitable due to the technological advancements that we have, but it became necessary due to the pandemic. A year before the onset of the COVID-19 virus, the telecommuting law in the Philippines was introduced, and despite the law being introduced on a voluntary basis, employees found it beneficial in combating the worsening traffic situation in highly populated areas. Several industries, specifically those that are in financial and communication sector, have reported having a large share of teleworkable jobs. Villaraza and Anganco points out how flexible working arrangements have been widely embraced and are expected to linger even after the ECQ has been lifted. While flexible working style has allowed employees to have more personal time, the lines between personal and work life is ironically becoming more blurry. Prasad et al. Emphasized that the experience of not being able to mentally disconnect from work may lead to an increased amount of stress, thus affecting the well-being negatively. Additionally, workers might struggle to accommodate varying responsibilities, which might affect the workers' overall well-being, as indicated by Staglin in 2020. According to the World Health Organization, well-being is a state of every individual to understand his capability, manage the normal stresses of life, and work productively and even contribute to his community. On one hand, Grant et al. Studies suggest that working from home provides a better work-life balance, more flexibility to work, an increase in job satisfaction, and employee engagement, all of which are mediators of well-being on the studies framework. On the other hand, jobs often require some level of interaction with their colleagues, which cannot be fulfilled by the mandatory physical separation, as mentioned by Madzi in the 1996. This may result in isolation and decreased social support, which is crucial in increasing the well-being. Now that we have understood work from home better, Christian will expand on how we intend to conduct the research.
Moving on to the research frameworks, the basis of the conceptual framework was obtained from Guest and Conway, as well as from D.E. Ripley. These models were merged to develop the conceptual framework in order to determine how perceived online work climates affect well-being through various mediating variables. The perceptual factor model of Ripley discusses about the perception of employees towards work environment factors that may influence their behavior and performance. By assessing how the factors relate to the behaviors and performance of the employees in their workplace, pertinent actions such as interventions may be determined to address any issues distinguished. These work climate perceptions are then integrated in the making of the conceptual framework. Next would be the psychological contract of Guest and Conway, where it shows the expectations, beliefs, ambitions, and obligations as perceived by the employer and the employee. It consists of promises such as paying compensations, expectations, and communicating, as well as vague commitments that cannot be specified. There are then three components that are then connected, namely fairness, trust, and the delivery of the deal. Depending on whether any of these components are breached, it can result in either positive or negative attitudinal or behavioral consequences. These attitudinal and behavioral consequences were then used to further develop the conceptual framework. Lastly, moving on to the hypothesized conceptual model, which illustrates the relationship between perceived online work climates and well-being. The conceptual framework introduces various attitudinal and behavioral consequences, such as job security, job satisfaction, affective commitment, engagement, and intention to stay or quit, all of which are the sources of perceived online work climates. Each of these perceived cultures contributes to the shift in attitudinal and behavioral consequences, wherein these consequences then directly affect one's well-being, which are divided into two aspects, namely life satisfaction and feelings. As we have conceptualized our framework, we now discuss the hypothesis of the research. The team has initially developed 35 hypotheses, all of which are now categorized into three general hypotheses. The first hypothesis speculates that online work norms perceptions positively affects well-being. The second hypothesis is that attitudinal consequences positively affects well-being. Lastly, the third hypothesis assumes that behavioral consequences positively affects well-being. Overall, these hypotheses make up of the overall conceptual framework.
Thanks, Will. Now we'll be talking about the methodology, specifically the research design, instruments, and participants of the study. Starting with the research design, our group used the exploratory sequential approach in which we first collected and analyzed the quantitative data from the survey and supported the results with qualitative data that was collected through follow-up interviews. The quantitative data were gathered using a 5-point Likert scale survey, and questions were adopted from different researchers, namely Kaplan et al., Eisenberg et al., Allen and Mayer, Kaman et al., and Crossley et al. Participants for the survey were chosen through a snowball sampling method, wherein contacted participants were asked to help the researchers in identifying other potential respondents. As a result, we were able to gather a total of 151 responses. However, 20 were deemed invalid and were discarded, leaving us with 127. A follow-up interview was then conducted with 7 chosen participants, and answers were used as supporting claims for the results and analysis of the quantitative data. Moving forward, listed here are the variables used in the study and their corresponding operational definitions for clarity.
The researchers wanted to pursue this topic because of the limited studies surrounding intern well-being, specifically during the work-from-home setup. Now, before we discuss the results from the data gathering, the researchers would like to reiterate the what, how, and why of the study. The researchers aim to answer what impacts the well-being of interns, how these independent variables impact well-being, and why it impacts it either positively or negatively. Now, let us move on to the discussion of the results.
Now, let us present to you the quantitative results of the study. The summary of the quantitative methods shows measures of central tendencies such as the average score and measures of variability through the standard deviation. This table also includes a Cronbach alpha for each variable in the framework, which is represented by the Likert scale statements included in the survey released. Perceived online work climate variables have higher average scores than attitudinal and behavioral consequences, as well as their well-being. Generally, this could indicate that respondents positively perceive their online work climate. Differences can also be noticed on the minimum and maximum scores they have. Only one aspect under the dependent variable had a score of lesser than 2, while all mediating and dependent variables were lesser than 2, and even 4 of them had the lowest possible score of 1. Consequently, the scores for the mediating and dependent variables were more dispersed, as indicated by the higher standard deviations they got. Moreover, reliability pretest results show that all variables Cronbach alpha was more than 0.7, except for personal fit of the employees, work, and work setting, which had a Cronbach alpha of 0.537. One of its three indicators was pulling down the Cronbach alpha and was then eliminated in the process of computing the average score of the variable to improve its reliability as well as its relationship with other variables, particularly the dependent variable well-being. As a result, the reliability of the variable went up to 0.759, and having all variables Cronbach alpha above zero point 0.7 indicates that the respondents treated the statements as reliably representing the variables. The research examined the correlations of the independent and mediating variables with the dependent variables, well-being, through life satisfaction and positive feelings. Given this, the table shows that 9 out of 10 of the dependent and mediating variables were correlated with the dependent variable because they garnered a p-value of less than 0.001 and had a person or closer to -1 or +1 as compared to 0. Only personal fit of the work group, work, and work setting did not have correlation with the dependent variable because it had a person's R score of -0.008 and a p-value of 0.932 for life satisfaction and a person's R of 0.055 and a p-value of 0.534 for positive feelings. This specific variable is represented by three Likert scale statements that are negatively stated, which was subsequently reversely coded before running all statistical analysis. Meanwhile, among the 9 variables that are correlated with life satisfaction and positive feelings, only intention to quit resulted in a negative person's R with a score of -0.3884 for life satisfaction and -0.507 for positive feelings. This suggests that there is an inverse relationship between an intern's intention to quit and their well-being. The study considers the relationship and effect significant by checking if the p-value is less than 0.05 and primarily if its upper and lower ranges, given the 95% confidence interval, belong only to a similar side of the zero, either positive or negative. As shown in your screens, the model was able to obtain an R score of 0.717, an R squared score of 0.515, and an adjusted R squared value of 0.473, displaying the correlation between the predicted values and the observed values. Given this, the explanatory power of this model is 47%, or the composition of the treated independent variables explained around 47% of the changes in the dependent variable, life satisfaction. The overall model tests have a p-value that is less than 0.001, which means that the results of the regression is statistically valid. The highlighted row shows the variables that are statistically significant. Only 2 factors under the perceived online work climate have contributed to the changes in life satisfaction. However, one of them, personal fit of the work group, work and work setting, the variable that was represented by negative statements, possessed a negative upper and lower limit given the 95% confidence interval, having an estimated effect of -0.1874 to life satisfaction. This relationship is deemed an inverse path. Meanwhile, attitudinal and behavioral consequences variables, namely job satisfaction, affective commitment, engagement, and intention to quit, also have a significant effect on life satisfaction. The effects of these variables are in accordance with their a priori expectations, except for the personal fit of the work group, work, and work setting. The model had an R score of 0.776, an R squared score of 0.602, and an adjusted R squared value of 0.568. This shows that around 57% of the variance of life satisfaction is explained by the treated independent variables. The p-value of less than 0.001 indicates that the model is valid. Organization and design of work and personal fit of the employees illustrated a strong positive influence with regards to an intern's positive feelings. Meanwhile, personal fit of the work group, work, and work setting is consistent on having an inverse relationship with well-being, but now towards positive feelings. It resulted in a negative upper and lower ranges alongside job security and intention to quit with estimates of -0.12849 and -0.24169 respectively. Moreover, communication and participation in the workplace, organization and design of work, personal fit of the employees, work and work setting obtain a positive relationship with well-being either through life satisfaction or through positive feelings. Lastly, personal fit of the work group, work and work setting consistently resulted in a negative lower and upper ranges, indicating its inverse relationship with well-being, which contradicts a priori expectations. Deeper understanding of the causal sequence by which the perceived online work climate causes attitudinal and behavioral consequences that causes well-being is shown through our remediation analysis. The mediation results for one aspect of well-being, which is life satisfaction, will be presented by Maxine.
Jolo. Now, let us discuss the mediation analysis for life satisfaction, which has 5 significant relations. But let me discuss the first 3. Data analysis showed that personal fit of the employee's work and work setting positively contributes to affective commitment, which leads to life satisfaction. Considering the direct effect, this relationship is considered to be a full mediation. Lang and Chin discussed that the higher the compatibility of an individual with the requirements of the job and organization, the more likely that an employee will develop an emotional involvement and attachment with the company. This helps in strengthening an employee's job presence, which plays a big role in the company. Janine C., one of the respondents we interviewed, mentioned that she feels valued when team involvement is high and helps her become more enthusiastic to do her job roles. Furthermore, Nika Johnson stated that when she is attached and involved in her organization, it becomes a factor for her life satisfaction, which affects her personal and professional life positively. Now, on to the second relationship. Personal fit of the employee's work setting has been proven to have a positive effect on engagement, which leads to life satisfaction. Considering the direct effect of characteristics of the work setting on life satisfaction, it can be analyzed that there is no significant relationship between the two, hence, the relationship is a full mediation. Interns' perception of general policies and characteristics related to the overall work setting positively affects their life satisfaction only if they show engagement related to work. As previously mentioned, employees who successfully accomplish their tasks are more likely to value and consider themselves a good leader, which impacts how they perceive their belongingness in the company. The findings of Incoglu and War showed that high levels of engagement with employees result in favorable results that target positive attitudes and satisfaction. To make results more robust, Mika Johnson, another one of the interviewed respondents, discussed how being part of an organization helps her in being highly engaged, especially if the work she is tasked to do aligns with her goals and values. Furthermore, this provides her satisfaction because she is motivated to reach her full potential in the work environment. As for the third relationship, personal fit of the employee's work and work settings proved to have a positive correlation with job satisfaction. Since the independent variable had a direct effect on life satisfaction, it can be deduced that this is a full mediation. With this being said, personal fit of the employee's work and work setting positively contributes to one's life satisfaction by being engaged with their job. Fernandez elaborates that personal job fit examines the match between an individual and their job, specifically their roles and responsibilities that are associated with their job. Employees who successfully accomplish their tasks with ease are more likely to consider themselves good employees capable of leading the team, which impacts how they perceive their belongingness in the workplace. This also provides them a scale as to how compatible and fit for the job they are. The findings of Christoph Brown and company discussed that employees who view themselves as capable of the role and responsibilities are proven to have an increase in employee attitude, both on job satisfaction and career satisfaction. This is mainly responsible for the sense of contentment that employees feel when they accomplish their roles and responsibilities at work. Now, let us move on to Nicole.
Thanks, Max. Now, based on our mediation analysis for positive feelings, there are 7 significant relationships. First is with communication and participation in the workplace, engagement and feelings, which is considered to have an inverse relationship with engagement as a full mediator. This implies that communication and participation in the workplace led to a decrease in positive feelings only when the former has resulted in lower engagement among employees. Kumari and Afros concluded in their study that employees' feelings have been harmed by their decreasing level of engagement to work as a result of daily tasks that require close and controlled communication. This behavior-based control of managers can be attributed to their low level of trust on teleworkers that they would have the same level of commitment to their work and performance if they are in the same workplace. As a result, employees' perception of their manager's lack of trust builds a high level of resentment and leads to a decline in enthusiasm for work. The insight was supported by Michelle Chen during the follow-up interviews conducted, which found that micromanagement drove employees into feeling a lack of control with their work outputs, which led to a negative attachment towards the company. This negative attachment plays a vital role in the decrease of employees' positive feelings and was elaborated by Hans T., stating that this sense of close supervision made me feel more pressured. Due to stress, I had to rush my outputs, which took a toll as to how satisfied I am in my performance. Findings also show that personal fit of the employees, work and work setting, job satisfaction, and feelings has a positively mediated relationship. Since personal fit of the employees, work and work setting had no significant effect on feelings, this relationship was a full mediation. This means that employees' perception on how well they fit with their work and work setting leads to positive feelings when the former has resulted in an increased engagement among employees. Agho et al. Discovered that employees that were satisfied with their jobs are those who work with friendly people, those with shared beliefs, and have jobs they are comfortable with. In addition, positive emotions are considered as a crucial counterpart to perceived stress, often defined as negative emotions, which have been shown to be negatively linked to job satisfaction. And for the third one, personal fit of the employees, work and work setting, engagement, and feelings also has a significantly positive mediation path. Since the personal fit of the employees, work and work setting has a direct effect to feelings, it can be implied that the mediation is a full mediation. This shows that fitting in an online work setting can develop positive feelings once an intern is absorbed and or enthusiastic about their work. Studies show that people who regularly feel unhappy during work likely perceive a lack of personal fit within the organization. Moreover, any type of interaction based on engagement is also effective in increasing well-being, which is synonymous with positive feelings. Awanda stated that having a sense of independence, the opportunity to use one's skills and abilities, and being comfortable with the workplace were factors that provided the most positive emotions in the workplace. Moving forward, personal fit of the work group, work and work setting, turnover intention, and feelings consists of a positive mediation. Personal fit of the work group, work and work setting has a direct effect in relation to feelings, which represents a partial mediation. This means that personal fit of the work group, work and work setting induces positive feelings in the workplace only if signs of leaving the workplace are not present. A survey made by Asgarian revealed that 65% of their respondents found a connection between close associations within the workplace and their turnover intention. More specifically, these respondents indicated that they would consider leaving the firm if they no longer had anyone to get along with within the workplace. When employees believe that they have a personal fit with the culture and values of the organization, then they are more likely to stay with the organization. In addition, personal fit of the employees, work and work setting, turnover intention, and feelings is another example of a positive mediation path, with turnover intention as a full mediator. This means that personal fit of the employees, work and work setting leads to positive feelings if there is little to no intent of leaving the organization. Studies concerning personal fit have determined that the individual and organization fit increases the likelihood of the individual's willingness to stay with the organization. An individual whose values are parallel to those of his organization would have less intent to leave the workplace. It has also been suggested that the personal fit between an employee and an organization may generate the feeling of a meaningful workplace, resulting in a high level of engagement with their jobs and lower intent to leave the organization. A study by Pelaez Fernandez discovered that subjective happiness is significantly associated with higher job satisfaction and with lower turnover intention in their jobs.
Now, Let us discuss two significant relationships that fall under both life satisfaction and positive feelings. As seen, organization and design of the work, engagement, and life satisfaction has a positively mediated path. Based from the results of the direct effect of the independent variable, it can be deduced that the relationship is a partial mediation. This means that organization and design of the workplace positively contributes to one's life satisfaction, both directly and indirectly through engagement. The same can be said for organization and design of the work, engagement, and positive feelings. The results of the mediation analysis shows that the relationship is a partial mediation. This implies that employees' perception on the organization of their work can lead to positive feelings either in the presence or absence of high levels of engagement. To have a complete idea of why organizational and design of the work has a strong relationship with engagement, Heddle's findings show how organizational design is actually curated for the sake of employees rather than companies. When employees are provided with proper communication channels, work policies, shift patterns, among others in the workplace, it creates a platform for employees to be fully engaged. With this perception of their work, employees are satisfied with their job and organization because their basic needs are met fairly, consistently.
Lastly, characteristics of the work setting, engagement, and positive feelings shows a positive mediation path. Since characteristics of the work setting had a direct effect on feelings, it indicates that the relationship is a full mediation. Similarly, characteristics of the work setting, engagement, and life satisfaction illustrate a positive mediation. Considering that the characteristics of the work setting has a direct effect on life satisfaction, this states that there is no significant relationship between the two. Hence, the relationship is a full mediation. With that being said, it can be assumed that interns' perception of general policies and characteristics related to the overall work setting positively affects their life satisfaction only if they show engagement related to work. As discussed by Chan and Huak, a work setting consists of several factors such as organizational policies, physical environment, and behaviors of workers that can either lead to improved morale and engagement or dissatisfaction and distress among employees. Studies show that implementing work-family balance policies and standards contribute to the employee's perception of the company's organizational support. Regardless of the employees being successful in balancing their work and personal life, their perception alone has a significant impact on their engagement. Consequently, employees who are highly engaged in their work were observed to more likely feel that their work lives have a positive and significant impact on their well-being as compared to those who are considered as disengaged.
From the study's results, we can now deduct that the perceived online work norms can positively affect the well-being of interns working in the e-commerce industry in the Philippines. It had an effect that is mediated by attitudinal and behavioral outcomes. However, the results illustrate that only certain dimensions of the perceived online work norms can directly affect the intern's subjective well-being. Among all dimensions of the independent variable, organization and design of the workplace, personal fit of the employees, work and work setting, and characteristics of the work setting contribute the most in improving one's personal positive attitude and feelings. The three variables form an indirect relationship with the well-being of interns through mediating variables such as job satisfaction, turnover intention, affective commitment, and primarily engagement. Meanwhile, only organization and design of work and personal fit of the employees, work and work design have a direct relationship to positive feelings, which is a dimension of well-being. Moreover, attitudinal and behavioral consequences, namely job satisfaction, affective commitment, engagement, and turnover intention, play an important role in mediating relationships as well as indirectly influencing well-being. Among these mediating variables, engagement or one's commitment, productivity, and ownership in an organization takes part in all statistically significant mediated relationships and is attributed to the high estimates of the mediation. Engagement alone has the strongest effect, indicated by its estimates on the life satisfaction and positive feelings. Given this, the study's conceptual framework was partially confirmed. Nevertheless, the conceptual framework can still be used in future studies and real-life practices. Since this study's results show the most effective ways to reinforce the well-being of interns working for the e-commerce industry at their home, the results can be used to create effective and actionable plans for organizations to ensure humanistic approaches to interns who are working remotely with them. Significant factors of this approach revolve around the relationship between an intern and a company. This is established primarily through an intern's perception of environmental factors that influences the content, organization, standards, and policies employed for one's work tasks. These positively operating factors focus more on an intern's perception on their work and the overall workplace as compared to the interpersonal relationship aspect of the perceived online work climate. With that being said, it can be deduced that the interns in a work-home setting prioritize how their work setting can positively contribute to performance and accomplishment of their tasks. Moving on to the recommendation portion of the paper. The study suggests that in an e-commerce organization's pursuit to an improved well-being of its interns who are working from home, it is highly recommended for organizations with a work-from-home setup to adopt programs that have a more organized and well-designed work setting where employees can feel that their ideas and values are congruent with the company's culture, mission, and vision, and more importantly, to the particular job entrusted to them. Having this in place could greatly improve intern engagement, increase job satisfaction, boost effective commitment, and decrease turnover and tension among interns. As interns become more satisfied, happy, and pleased, overall organization performance would also improve. Moreover, managers may utilize and incorporate the suggested measures in their respective organizations as they continue to offer remote work arrangement for both interns and employees. Given that micromanagement among teleworkers, especially millennials, has a negative impact on employee engagement, it is highly recommended for managers and supervisors to find new ways to trust their employees more, even if physical presence is not that evident in the workplace due to safety protocols. Management could establish trust in the workplace by requiring cameras on during meetings, conduct daily stand-up meetings, monitor progress of deliverables, and regular tracking of behavior and quality of the work. Furthermore, the study shows that ensuring an alignment between the intern and their job reinforces their level of enthusiasm and dedication at work. With that being said, it's also recommended for an organization's management to assign tasks and responsibilities to interns that are based on their qualifications and interests to ensure high levels of engagement and productivity in the workplace. The research also suggests for future studies regarding the impact of a work-from-home setup to an intern's well-being to conduct additional qualitative methods to determine the direct relationship of the perceived online work climate to attitudinal and behavioral outcomes of interns. Provided that the study and survey is limited to interns, specifically those with experience in the e-commerce industry, researchers can consider exploring different age groups from various industries and job ranks to determine if it will produce the same results or not. It is also recommended to increase the sample size in order to make the results more credible, accurate, and relevant. Once again, I'm Christian Villones, together with Maxine Silvino, Nicole, and Jolo Tugade. We thank you for listening to our presentation.